Good afternoon there. This is Michael Cross with another edition of UCY TV's Unlock the Door Radio. And tonight, I say tonight or good afternoon because, it depends on what time zone you're listening to us. Anyway, after I've said that, I also have to say, if you want articles that pertain to these subjects and others, please visit my website at michaelcross.net. Anyway, today or tonight or this afternoon or whatever, we have a very special guest. His name's Larry Farris. He's an author and businessman, and he's written a book called The 75 Proven Ways Stay-at-Home Moms Earn Great Income. Okay, this should be very informative as well. Larry, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. Great to talk to you.
Okay, 75 ways women can stay at home and earn great income. Is this like those pop-ups you get sometimes, or do you go into some detail that's really something that would help people who maybe are thinking, I got kids, maybe I don't want to leave them in daycare?
Sure, no, that's the point. I've been self-employed and working from home for about 20 years, and on Facebook and other social medias, I'm frequently seeing, young parents who are asking, "Hey, is there any way that I can come home or stay home, care for my child, do what I want to do, and still earn decent income?" And it touched me. I realized that there was a real need for it. And as I started looking at the other books that were published and the other ideas that were published, most of them were, candidly garbage. They had ideas that, from my business experience, I knew clearly wouldn't work. And one of the worst things for someone who's in a desperate situation is to spend their time and their money chasing something that won't work. And so what I did is I just spent time and put together what I felt confidence in is that someone who didn't have a lot of specialized training, but at the same time period wanted to focus their time on children and home, could earn decent, good income with a minimal amount of risk in their business pursuits, and do so. I have things you can do in the country, things you can do in the city, things you can do in the suburbs, and kind of create some ideas and get some ideas and some juice flowing for gals.
Okay, so I take it you definitely feel that there should be a parent at home with young kids, that daycare is probably not the most optimal environment. Larry? Hello? One. Okay, so how do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's really a parent's decision. I'm not trying to make a political statement. I have my own values and such, but there are people who want and need what I'm writing about, and there are other people that have no interest whatsoever, and that's fine. And it's really focused for the people who really want and need solutions, that they're reaching out and they're trying to find a way that they can combine their personal innate desire to spend time with their children, to care for the children, to be the primary care provider, while at the same time period earning enough income to offset. And so, I'm not trying to make it a you should or ought to. And I do get a lot of that. I do get a lot of people like, "Oh, you just think, but that's not my point.
Okay, so tell me, you've got a situation where a young couple, where they feel that they want to spend more time, at least one of them spend more quality time with their kids. And they come to you or read your book. Of course, most of them can't come to you, but they're going to virtually do it through reading your book. What's some of the tips? What's some of the things they're going to find in your book?
Yeah, and the first thing, what I'm noticing is it's not as common for couples. Here's the challenge. I have a pretty thriving tax practice. It's one of the things that I do in the way I work out of my home. And a good number of my clients are single moms who are not in a relationship and don't have any support from their co-parent. So they're really stuck. I mean, they're in a tough situation because they really can't afford the daycare expense. They're not making enough money in a typical kind of entry level job that's available for a 25 to 30-year-old mom. They're really stuck, and that's one of the first that's one of the first things I have in mind is not the kind of idyllic situation where you've got, husband and wife and a kid, and the husband's got a great job and the wife's just trying to help out. Yeah, that's one part of our society. But there's another part of our society that are single parents, and they're in a tough situation. And so that's really more the focus that I'm trying to write to, is to really reach down to find the person who's in tough financial situations, tough social situations, and still be able to provide some hope and some strategy so they can get out of that struggle that they're into.
Okay, so can you just give us an example of something that someone that has an education, let's say, they have one or two kids, and they are single, that would be maybe an option for them rather than going into the workforce?
So some of the options, and I'm getting signals over here that are telling me that our internet connection is being disrupted, Mike. So I'm only picking up some of what you're saying. But some of the things that I'm excited about, I think if a person has any background at all in mortgage, title, real estate, etc., there's a great business model for serving in that world, and especially doing things like independent mortgage processing. An independent mortgage processor can earn $300 to $500 for every file that is successfully closed. And what you find is that a lot of really good loan officers are the type of people who have sales skills, and they like people, and they want to go out and they want to do things quickly, but they're not very well organized. And so it's just a great pair to have a highly detailed person match up with a salesperson for processing mortgages. And it is a common and well accepted career or small business to operate from your home to support a selling personality in the mortgage industry, and then earn $300 to $500 per file that closes. So if you're closing one or two files a week, and here's the other point, you don't have to work for just one. A processor can probably be processing for 3 to 5 different loan officers at a time, and picking up $300 to $500 per file that they close, working from their home, simply organizing documents as they come in, tracking the process, putting a file together that meets certain standards, and then helping to make that file submission to the lenders that the loan officer has selected. It's a great one of the great concepts I like to talk about in my book.
And you go into detail, obviously, for people that might not have a great deal of experience in this area.
Just somewhat. The idea is the purpose of my book is to jog your memory, to give you ideas, to explore paths. And there are, it would be hundreds of pages to flesh too deeply into to each one of the concepts. But it introduces the concept, shows people what the premise is, reminds them, hey, if you've worked in the real estate industry, you remember interfacing with that person that did that? Oh yeah. Well, you ought to be thinking about doing that at your home as well.
Okay, so I've been, you see a lot of stuff in the media now about how the workforce is changing as well when it comes to such things as robotics taking over a lot of jobs. A lot of jobs get outsourced and so forth. So it seems like a lot of businesses now that they need someone with skills where they actually need a human doing it, that they're contracting out. And that sounds like what you're talking about, these kind of businesses that they don't hire someone because then you have to pay Social Security on them. You need to do this and this and this. You've got all the insurance regulations. America's not a very business-friendly environment anymore. So a lot of them are actually going out and trying to find people that they can hire on a per something basis, where they fix something or they do
on performance or performance or production or commission or a pay per piece, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely. And this is where a lot of people don't recognize this shift that's moved away from brick and mortar, where everybody kind of we all do the drive up in your car in masses. We all drive the same cars. We all wear the same suits. 20 years ago, I went to the insurance headquarters of a big insurance company up in Portland, near Portland, Oregon. And I arrived about the same time period as a staff. And, all the staff members were driving the same Chrysler K car. All the men were wearing the same blue suits. All the women were wearing the same blue suit coordinates. It was pretty weird. And I think I was wearing a blazer, so I it used to step out like a sore thumb. Well, that era is really gone. This idea of everybody showing up and working in their little cubies, it's gone. The internet and connectivity and communication, it allows us now to work more independently. Now, but there's a lot of small businesses that haven't yet adopted. They haven't yet done that. So it's not that difficult for a mom, and I'm focusing on moms for my book. It's not that difficult for a mom to think about the things she's already done in business in the past, any experience she's already had, and then to approach a few, especially smaller employers, and say, look, you probably have need for a part-time person or a half-time person, but you don't have space, you don't want to take on the overhead. I'd like to help you out. I'd like to do that for you. I'll do it from my home. I'd be glad to drop in a couple days a week to pick up paperwork, to deliver things, meet with you for 45 minutes or something. But I want to spend time with my children while at the same time period I can provide a meaningful support service for you. That's a great approach, great pattern for success.
You see, I wouldn't have thought of that myself. I would have thought you go to the big companies and then try to get something. But what you're saying is they've probably outsourced to Bangladesh or something when it comes to
right. If the bigger companies, if they've considered this, they're going to do it in mass, and there's going to be some huge process to go through. And once they go through that huge process, unfortunately, they're probably going to they're going to go someplace where they can find, quote, English speakers, although it's questionable, that they can use, out of country, not just outsourced. And so my direction in my book, I talk a lot about approaching the small business person. And I'm a champion for small business. I don't care to work inside of those big we say so corporate structures. I'm much more comfortable. I think more people are more comfortable interfacing with, companies that have 10, 20, 30 employees.
Mm-hmm. And this is an advantage for the company because, like I said, there's a lot of government taxes they don't have to pay. And, they're probably starting to shift more and more that direction. I mean, it seems like in 10 years, a lot of jobs are going to disappear, like I said, because of robotics. But then you're going to see more. There's still going to be a need for certain jobs to be done. You can't put a mortgage, for instance, into some sort of processor that will automatically fix everything, obviously. You'd agree, right?
I do. You could probably robotize, you could probably develop some software that will take the documents, scan them, and enter them into a software. But what we can't yet robotize is the need for the gathering and collection of those documents and figuring out which one's which. So when you've received a package full of papers, do you have the right papers that go into the computer or not? That's really the human element. I also, I know people are concerned about the replacement of jobs from robotics, but, robots need to be maintained, they need to be designed, need to be engineered. I really believe in an expanding economy. And as we gain efficiencies in one sector, through robotics, for example, then we're very likely to create entirely new expansions in the economy. The challenge, of course, is that the person who was doing the robotically replaced job, they feel the pinch because they're out of work, but the people that are maintaining and building and designing robots and doing all that, they have a new job. So I think there's a constantly expanding process. In the U.S., it's not so much of a tax burden. The tax burden is small in the United States in comparison to one big animal, and that's regulation. The combined state and federal regulations far exceed the cost of running the governments. There are enormous economic pressures and punitive pressures against small business. Big business in the United States tends to buy up United States senators and congressmen, get legislation passed that promotes certain protective structures for big business, but in the meantime, it makes it very expensive, very difficult for smaller business to function. And so that's really the pain that small business faces is the threat of litigation, which I didn't mention, but the threat of litigation is probably number one. And number two is the cost of regulatory compliance. And number three would be taxation. And so in this area, I think it's really more of an issue of regulatory compliance. And I'll give you one example. If you have a small company, you have no employees, you could have a retirement plan that you run out of your checkbook that it's a self-directed 401k. You could fund thousands of dollars per year into it, tax-free. You can manage it yourself. You can buy and sell whatever you want to out of your own checkbook. There's very minimal reporting requirements. The moment you have one employee, that thing becomes a nightmare. And because now you're regulated by employee benefit, I mean, there's just stacks and stacks and stacks of regulatory compliance that falls into that 401k plan that if you had no employees at all, you can run it out of your own checkbook. And so that's one of the reasons that people look at these independent structures is, hey, if I can independently retain instead of employ people to perform functions from their home and my company can still thrive, I can actually have an economic advantage because I don't have all this regulatory pressure that I have to deal with all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. I've spent a lot of time in China, and I've examined what it would take to set up a business in China. And if you compare China to, let's say, Oregon, you know, the laws there and the regulations, China's much more open to business. If a person wants to start a business in China, they're like, what can we do to help you? Versus, okay, we're here to find out if there's anything we can. They strike me in America as being kind of like the butler who goes in and checks if the maids have dusted properly and, you know, running their fingers on every conceivable surface to see if any dust still exists in the house or something. That seems to be what most bureaucrats do in America.
Yeah, well, I left Oregon. You know, you and I both have roots there, and I left Oregon over a couple of primary reasons, and one of the big reasons was regulatory compliance. When I came to Arizona, oh my gosh, the difference are going to be more open today and in the future for considering, you know, more off-site relationships with people providing services. And I just want to encourage, you know, moms that if they have a desire and they want to stay home, they want to spend time with their kids. And I'm not trying to, you know, punish anybody who doesn't. But if that's their desire, then I've got 75 ways, and there's more, but I mentioned the 75 ways I thought were best for moms to be able to make, you know, significant income, not just pennies here and pennies there, and not things that require an extensive amount of time away from their family.
Okay. Hey, you know, I just noticed, okay, if people want your book, it's on Amazon. You can just type in Larry Farris or the name of the book. Do you have a website or anything?
I don't. I just put it on Amazon. And one of the things Amazon, in your first 90 days with Amazon, they don't want you promoting anywhere besides Amazon. And they give you a special consideration as an author if you do so. And so it kind of encourages many of the authors like myself, and that I'm working on about my fifth book right now, seventh. I'm working about my seventh book right now. So as you produce more books, it really becomes more of an incentive to stay with Amazon because of that they don't want a secondary promotion model.
Okay. Your 7 books? That's a lot. Any of them on politics?
No, not yet. I'm a little worried. You know, I really am worried about the level of freedom in the United States, and I'm not sure that it's really safe anymore to have a candid discussion about what the problems are and how to fix it.
Oh, I guess there's an advantage when you don't actually reside in the country anymore.
Right. No, Mike, we've been buddies for years, and I have great respect for the path you've walked, and it's not the U.S. that you remember. I mean, there's we could get into that other side, but the police state that's been created here is pretty intimidating to people who remember the good old days.
Yeah, I just noticed a picture of that shooting that took place in Oregon, and they had like dozens of students all lined up with their hands on their heads, and the way they were going over them, I mean, it's like now the police just round people up and, okay, assume position. I mean, seriously, that used to be a joke, that people would do.
I know.
About if the cops get you, it's like, assume the position. And now it's just like, snap the finger, Americans comply, get into the position.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, no, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and, you don't see that kind of situation. I've talked to cops in Italy. I've had interactions with police, not in a negative way, but, in China, in Russia, various countries in Europe. And it seems that the police outside of America are more educated or professional, or at least there's a certain sense of boundaries. And it was that way up until like the early 2000s. And then suddenly now it's like there's people that don't even want to fly in. They'll pay extra to fly into Toronto for a transfer on a plane rather than having to transfer in America and have to go through all the security.
Yeah. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. Well, we can talk about that later. That would be a really interesting subject because, I'd love to talk about what's going on in the Middle East right now. Maybe, it's a good idea to buy extra food and so forth and have it stored away. Maybe the Mormons are right after all, everyone. Anyway, so, okay, well, Larry, nice talking with you, and I really, really, really do encourage people to check out the book. And I guess even if you're employed and you don't have kids, or with today's employment structures, you don't know. Tomorrow you could be replaced, and anything can happen to your corporation. So therefore, nowadays I think it's really important to diversify. Have more than one thing you're good at, because you don't want to be in a position where whatever you're good at no longer is needed. And I think you'd agree with that, right, Larry?
That's right. Oh, absolutely. And the reason I have 75 different business structures, different business ideas in my book is I don't expect somebody necessarily to do one. It may be that during for example, my wife is an amazing designer, custom clothing designer and seamstress and flat pattern designer and such. So she's got a lot of work to do during prom season, right up before the winter high school formals, and during the spring with weddings, but not a whole lot in the summer and not much in the fall and early winter period. And so if she were in a situation where she needed to make more income, she'd have to use 2 or 3 different ideas. She might be doing custom designs and alterations 4 months a year, but other periods of time she'd be working in, one of the things we do out of our home is payroll. And we help small businesses prepare and file their payroll. 3 months a year, I'm very active preparing small business and personal taxes. And so the idea is that if you think about 3 or 4 to maybe 2, 3 or 4 different business ideas that you can catch their highs. Every business has a season. And if you're in the season at the peak with each one of the business structures, you have a far better chance of serving a potential client better, of meeting a need better, and making better income while you're advancing your lifestyle. And it doesn't mean you have to stay at home either. I mean, our family, we got an RV and we traveled for 10 months in 2004, 2005. We traveled the entire country while we homeschooled our kids. And I was able to develop an income training and teaching along the way. So there's a lot of things, and we did that before. In 1997, we spent the entire winter in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara, and I was able to make some income doing some business structures. And so it doesn't mean stay at home. It may be that you're just gathering your family together and making an income using 2 or 3 or 4 different strategies to pull the whole thing together. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Well, we're bucking the midpoint here, though. So again, everyone, check 75 proven ways to stay at home moms earn great income from Larry Farris. Okay, well, thank you very much, Larry.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too. Bye now.
We're going to do something a little